All right. Hello, and welcome to this episode where we're going to talk about mental reassurance. And so, this is in our series of mental safety behaviors and how they are, oftentimes one of the most common things people are doing that are actually keeping them in that OCD and anxiety loop. So, before we dive in, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Cotty, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and the founder of Restored Minds and the creator of the AAA Response. And in this episode, my goal in this whole series really is to really help you discover certain mental behaviors that you may be doing if you wrestle with OCD and anxiety. Because, like I said, I just think it's in my experience, it's probably one of the, if not the biggest hurdles that people encounter, primarily because they just simply don't know they're doing them. And so in this episode, again, I want to talk about mental reassurance. Before we dive into that, again, I have some links right down in the notes for those of you that are looking for help. I have a free guide as well as a workshop you can start, as well as we have the Taking Back Control 12-week program that you can enroll in as well, to really help you break out of that loop. Also, if you would please support the show by liking and subscribing, as well as leaving a comment and review. Those would really help us with the algorithms, and so we'd really appreciate it. That said, let's dive into mental reassurance. So, mental reassurance is really just this act of mentally telling yourself something to counteract the fear that you're experiencing. So, for instance, we can use an example like contamination, right? Or, and we can use any example we want, really. But what if thinking comes in. So, what if I get a disease, or what if I get this, this terrible thing happens? Mentally reassuring yourself is verbally counteracting that thought in your mind, right? Not articulating it like actually verbally, but more in your mind, saying things like, no, I'm safe. No, I'm safe. No, I'm safe. Or no, I didn't get that disease. I'm okay. I'm okay. Right. And you're reassuring yourself of the desired outcome. And this is the same thing as getting reassurance from someone else, right, about your fear, right? Because the problem is that it does make you feel better temporarily, but it paradoxically reinforces the initial thought and trains your system that, hey, that thought was dangerous. So then your system keeps producing, or the brain keeps producing the thought, nervous system keeps responding and keeps firing. And then therefore you have to engage in more behaviors. So the thing and so like a good example of why mental behaviors keep people stuck is mental reassurance. And so let me go ahead and explain. So like one time I was working with someone and they had contamination. And, so when we talked about ERP, right, they had explained, hey, look, I tried ERP and it didn't work for me. And, and it was like, I tried this and we touched contaminated stuff and I didn't wash and I didn't get better. And so, and they did, to their credit, like they really did cease many of their washing behaviors. The problem is ERP only works if you eliminate all the behaviors, right? So ERP, just to be clear, we're talking about exposure response prevention. And when the person has the initial contamination fear pop in their mind, what if I get this terrible disease from touching, let's say, a table at a restaurant, right? The thought pops up, what if I get X, Y, and Z disease? And then the fear starts, right? Or the stress response kicks in. And they're, sitting with that feeling. And then their normal compulsive behaviors would be to wash. Now, if they prevent themselves from washing, that's great. That's awesome. But then they go and reassure themselves a bunch that table's safe, that table's safe, that table's safe, that table's safe, right? Or I'm not in trouble, I'm not in danger, I'm not in danger, I'm not in danger, or this is OCD, this is OCD, this is OCD. Whatever they're reassuring themselves of is just replacing that washing behavior because it's neutralizing the fear in a quick manner. But again, it paradoxically reinforces the initial thought that happened, which trains the nervous system that thought was in fact dangerous. Okay. So mental reassurance, and this is why a lot of people again struggle with ERP, is because what most clinicians who haven't lived through this or really been trained well in helping people with OCD and anxiety, even ones who went above and beyond and learned ERP, which is not something that you really learn in school, and really learned it well, and like, really helped and identified all those avoidance behaviors and washing behaviors and, little things. Like the thing is you have to eliminate all the behaviors, and that includes the mental ones. So when the person touches something and then feels, like, contaminated, it would be the same as saying, like, if they didn't wash with soap, that if they went and used Perel, like, that wouldn't help them, right? Like, changing the behavior from washing your hands with soap to using Perel is not going to do anything. The same exact way that changing the behavior from washing your hands to mentally reassuring yourself isn't going to do anything, right? And this is the tricky stuff. This is the tricky parts of the recovery process that, most, I would say a large majority of the behaviors that people engage in are mental. It's the rumination, the mental reassurance, the mental reviewing, the counting, the praying, the mental checking and scanning, all that stuff that's going on just kind of in the mind that no third party can see. So even the therapist, if they don't know about things like mental reassurance or mental review, well, the person's just going to do it not knowing that they're doing a compulsion, and the therapist is going to be perplexed because they're going to be like, well, he or she didn't wash, right? So we did ERP effectively. And then the therapist is going to be perplexed, like, oh, I don't know why this isn't working. Because, to their credit, they're following to the T on all the physical behaviors. This is where you get the run-ins. In my opinion, this is where things go awry, because if you don't understand that all safety behaviors or all compulsions are created equal, and you can't do not only the physical but also the mental, you're going to run into trouble. And that's why, again, I teach and am so passionate about teaching the AAA response, is because when you have a solution focused approach, and more importantly, one that is anchored into specifically helping you stop the mental safety behaviors, that's the first point that I work on with every single person that I work with. We actually don't focus on the physical behaviors until after we really have mastered eliminating the mental ones, because I think it's backwards. I think the physical ones are easier to eliminate than the mental ones for most people. But what most people do is they try to eliminate the physical ones, keep doing the mental ones, and don't see results. They don't see any habituation take place. They don't see any reduction in stress or anxiety. So they assume that ERP doesn't work for them. But mental reassurance is a great example of a compulsive behavior or safety behavior that people engage in, oftentimes without even realizing it themselves, but definitely without their coach or therapist or psychologist or whoever's helping them recognizing it. And this is where the frustration comes in. So whether you're a coach or a therapist or, psychologist or psychiatrist, if you're working with someone, make sure they understand mental safety behaviors and make sure you understand it, because if they're engaging in it and you're removing the physical behaviors, you're not going to see any results, because it's essentially they're just exchanging a physical behavior for a mental. And that is so important that you understand that. So with that said, I hope that helps. And, we have some links right down in the notes where you can learn more about the AAA response, as well as other resources to help you on this journey. And with that said, I hope you guys have a wonderful week as always, and we'll continue this series next time as we continue talking about mental safety behaviors. Take care.